Hi, I'm Nicole Hockley from Sandy Hook.
Okay, you should be good to go.
Great. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I now call to order the 2085th regular meeting of the City of College Place City Council. It is 7:01, and will the clerk please take roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Bobbitt.
Present, and I missed the prayer.
Councilmember Cleveland.
Present.
Councilmember Peterson.
Present.
Councilmember Selby.
Present.
Councilmember Sherman.
Present.
Councilmember Boyle.
Present.
Councilmember Nyhagen has requested to be excused tonight. We do have a quorum. We also have in attendance Mayor Hernandez, City Administrator Rizzatello, Finance Director Carlton, Fire Chief Winter, Community Development Director Rickard, HR Manager Doring, and myself, City Clerk Neisel. Got a quorum, you're good to go.
Great, thank you. All right, it is now time. If you can all please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. So let's get moving on. We have a long agenda today. It's time for a public comment. So did anyone submit comment, or is anyone in attendance would like to currently speak?
No one has submitted comments, and we do not currently have any Zoom attendees.
Okay, great. All right, consent agenda. It's time to approve the consent agenda, which consists of the approving agenda for today, October 26, 2021. Approve the council minutes from October 12th, 2021. The check register and financials for September 2021, and excuse the absence of Council Member Nyhagen. Are there any items the council would like removed from the consent agenda at this time?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Member Cleveland.
Great. First and a second, is there any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it, the motion is passed. Okay, presentations, we have two presentations tonight, and the first one is Arbor Day Proclamation. Let me quickly pull that up. Okay, it's whereas Arbor Day was established in 1872 by J. Sterling Morton of Nebraska as a day set aside to plant trees, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce erosion by wind and water, lower our heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas the addition of trees to the landscape has been shown to stimulate economic development, and whereas the City of College Place recognizes that trees and parks are important to enhance the beauty of the city and actively encourages the planting and care of trees throughout the city. And now, therefore, I, Norma L. Hernandez, Mayor of the City of College Place, Washington, do hereby proclaim October 26, 2021, College Place Arbor Day. And I appeal to the residents of College Place to celebrate Arbor Day and encourage everyone to plant and care for trees in College Place for the well-being of this and future generations. The City of College Place recognizes, given under my hand and seal as Mayor of the City of College Place, Washington, on the 26th day of October 2021, Norma Hernandez, Mayor. Got to plant a tree earlier today with students at Davis Elementary in Kiwanis Park. That was a lot of fun. They got to experience Arbor Day for themselves. Okay, next, Mr. Carlton will give a 2022 preliminary budget presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll share my screen and bring up the presentation. So here we go again. This is the second run through, pretty much the same presentation. We've updated some of the numbers. The biggest change is included in here is the accounting for the 4 new firefighters that we're hopefully going to get approved for next year. So that's included in these numbers. I'll get into detail when we get into the payroll portion. Here's the schedule where we're at. Tonight we have the presentation. We also have tonight we have the public hearing on the property tax levy and the revenues. We are required to, at the next council meeting, we'll set the property tax levies. That has to be submitted to the county by the 15th of November. On the 16th and 23rd, we'll be putting out notice for public hearing on the final budget. 21st of November, we'll make available a preliminary budget to the public. We'll have another hearing at council on the 23rd of November. We'll have a budget review with the Finance Committee on December 9th. Final workshop is on the 7th. For the budget, and then the final hearing and hopefully the approval of the budget on the 14th of December. Again, the key assumptions, we're being conservative in our projections on revenues and expenditure. We want to make sure we maintain our core services, investing in critical infrastructure, addressing staffing gaps that threaten maintaining core services, and continue to obtain grants. This is the preliminary budget where it sits right now. A beginning fund balance of 18.7 million with revenues of 39.2, expenditures of 41, with an ending fund balance of $16.8 million. And we'll get into the reasons for that drawdown in fund balance. Here's the summary of the all the funds. I did break down the utilities according to their different components, be it the operating capital reserves of those different utilities. So you can see the first line is current expense fund. We're starting at $3.9 million. That is a little inflated because of the ARPA funds, the $1.3 million that's in that opening balance, that we're not going to incur a majority of those expenditures until 2022. That's why you see the expenditure number so high. It's also in there is the additional 1.3 million we'll receive next year as the second tranche of the ARPA funds. You can see that the ending fund balance is drawn down by almost $1.4 million. That is largely attributable to the ARPA expenditures that occurred, that we received the funds this year, but we'll be incurring them next year. So that's completely reasonable that fund balance is going to go down. And the 2.5 million is actually about $400,000 higher than the fund balance was at the end of last year. So that's of 2020. Going down the different expense funds, you can see a majority of them are in the surplus balance. A few are not, but those were expected expenditures where we're accumulating money over years to make a large expenditure. You can see that in criminal justice. We do have cameras in there, and we also have in the I believe it's the tasers. So that drawdown in that fund. Going down further, we pretty much maintain good balances throughout. In this meeting, I do not have the reserve calculations. That'll be presented in the next iteration of the budget. The REIT, you can see a large deficit in the REIT, and that's because we've been accumulating money for the last 3 years for Lions Park renovation. You can see that expenditures are quite high at $3.2 million. We also have $500,000 in that beginning fund balance that came from Sherwood Trust. So we're looking at pretty much that whole balance, 1.2 million of that opening balance is accumulated money for the Lions Park project. Going into the streets, you can see we're in good shape there. We're showing a surplus of $126,000 for the year and rolling forward a balance. So we'll maintain that balance moving forward and be able to do some work on the street projects. The next group of funds are the water utility funds. You can see we do have a drawdown on that, and that's attributable to all the capital expenditures that we have going on in the water projects. We have to finish the well, which we do have our own money in the game that we have to expense on that project, and that's attributable to that capital reserve fund drawdown of $348,000. But we do maintain a healthy ending fund balance in all the accounts. The total for the water utility, we had $4.7 million in fund balance. Into the wastewater utility, you can see we're doing quite well there. We're showing a surplus of $452,000 for the combined funds, and rolling forward with an ending fund balance of $4.241 million. That's a very healthy fund, although we're going to need that as we go into the wastewater treatment plant project, which we're going to have some of our own money in that as well. The last utility is the stormwater utility, and that as well is doing very well, even though it's a new fund. So that's showing a surplus for the year of $161,000 for a total of $1.2 million. The last couple funds are our equipment rental and replacement funds. That is keeping status quo. Basically, the current expense fund funds that and then allocates out to the different areas that purchase the equipment. The last one is our flexible benefits. Our fiduciary fund has $16,000 balance, ending fund balance. The total, again, we're showing that deficit of $1.8 million, but ending with a healthy fund balance of $16.8 million. I'll just stop for a second and if you guys have any questions on that part of it.
Any questions yet? Nope. You're good, Mr. Carlton.
Here's the breakdown by unit under our current expense. Just giving you guys an idea. It was requested last year that we let you guys know where we're at on operating capital debt and interfund transfers is how it relates to how the funds flow. You can see from an operating perspective, we are at a surplus in the current expense of close to $1.6 million. We do have those non-recurring expenditures. The revenue you can see there, that's the ARPA money for next year. We do have some capital expenditures in current expense, and mostly a lot of interfund transfers, and a lot of that relates to the $2.6 million of ARPA money that's going to flow through other funds that we transfer out. We receive all the money in the current expense, and then we allocate it out according to what projects you guys approved. So you can see in total, we have a lot of non-recurring expenditures next year, but we are doing quite well on the operating account. Here are the streets funds. You can see from an operating perspective, they do lose money because there's very limited sources of revenue in the streets funds. Most of that is funded through interfund transfers from current expense. And we do get a little bit of revenue through fuel tax. But most of that is funded through current expense. You can see that we do have a number of projects, and I'll get into detail on those. And those, some are grant funded and some are through interfund transfers. You can see that $810,000, that'll be the transfer from current expense. And the expenditures for interfund transfers will come from the equipment purchases. Overall, though, we are healthy on a surplus of $127,000. Here's the combination of all the water funds. You can see from an operating perspective, again, operating quite well at a surplus of $948,000. Just as a heads up for the reserve, we're required to have 30 days of operating expenditures available. And if you look at the 1.7, we're in good shape as far as maintaining our reserves. We do have the debt to number of different loans on projects, and we're getting the revenues generated through the fees that are charged through the utilities. That's the revenue of $934,000, and then that's the loan payments of $740,000 a year. That will go up in 2023 as we will be finishing the wells projects, and the loans we have on those projects will become long-term debt. And then we have some interfund transfers, and then a large portion of non-recurring capital expenditures. That's on the wells projects, and we'll get into a little bit of all the projects a little later on, but you can see that the money that we're required to support that capital is $1.4 million out of $7.9 million in expenditures. So we do get a lot of grants. Overall, you can see we are operating at a deficit next year of $379,000, but you know, as an operating, we're doing well. Here are the wastewater, the funds. Again, you can see in the operating, we are operating at a surplus of just over $1 million on operating. We do break even on the debt, and that debt again is supported through the utility revenues. And then we do have interfund transfers. Again, a large amount of capital expenditures. The $790,000 will be our portion of expenditures required. The revenues will be the grants. I'll get into the projects that make up that $2.8 million a little later. We are operating at a good surplus on that group of funds at $452,000. The stormwater, the last of the utilities, again, they are operating at a good surplus at $202,000. We do have some debt that's not funded through the utilities, it's funded through the operating. So with that, we do still have a surplus of $153,000. We are pretty much breaking even on our capital through grants or loans, and just the interfund transfers are just between as required by the utility rate models. Our net in that group of funds, $161,000. The REIT, that's a big one. That's a real estate excise tax. That's 100% of the revenue, no direct expenditures for operating. It's all going to capital. And you can see that we are operating at a deficit next year, but that's totally expected as we've been accumulating money to pay for the Lions Park project. And that's the total amount of those expenditures is Lions Park. Here's a summary of the revenues. It hasn't changed from the first presentation. We are on the property taxes, which we'll get into in the next presentation, but you know, we're being very reasonable on our revenue expectations for next year, not showing any huge increases or big reductions. Sales tax, pretty much status quo. B&O tax, same. Pretty much going down the line. You see the ARPA revenues there, about the sixth line down. That was the money we received from the feds for 2021 and 2022. That money can be expensed as far away as 2024. We have our state shared revenue, those numbers, public safety, those are given to us by MRSC. And then John in the development side gives us our numbers, and there's various ones throughout there. You can see the road fund. That's our money that I talked previously about. That comes from an MRSC suggestion. They put out a list of amounts they anticipate for next year, and we use those numbers traditionally. Again, our water, our utility revenues are next, all driven from our rate models showing what our increases are, and I'll show you what the rates are later on. Right now, we're showing a excuse me, I think it's 4% for water, 5% for wastewater, and 3% for stormwater increases for next year. And those do support those, definitely support those funds. And then the combination of our other funds where we're generating the revenue based on plan development or what we get through the rate model for debt service costs.
Councilmember Peterson has his hand raised.
Right, that's a great sheet. I really like how you've organized it this year, or maybe I'm just a little bit more aware, but the top two lines, I found that it's very educational. We look at property tax and sales tax. I mean, I'm not sure. I know we've talked about it in the past, but how that is being the parity there, or not, well, that sales tax has overtaken property tax. That's quite the message that sends to us, you know.
And of course, as the city grows, you know, and if we get some more of that commercial development, that number is definitely going to go up.
Right. I mean, I was always under the impression property taxes were bringing in more, I guess, than sales tax, but that hasn't been that way for quite some time, actually. So yeah. Anyway.
Well, yeah, and you can see the growth rates gone up in the sales tax, but we are capped at the 1% a year on property taxes.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that when I do the property tax levy presentation.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, really good information. I guess that's my main point. Thanks.
And these numbers have not changed since the first iteration I presented a couple weeks ago. Here's the staffing for next year. We're showing this is the one change that was added in. We've added in the 4 fire EMS employees to help out with you know, the fire and ambulance, or I guess it's for the ambulance to get coverage for those guys. So that's been included in, and that's included in those numbers. Full wage and benefit calculations and a bit of other miscellaneous costs have been added into the current expense fund. So even with that, that totals just over $500,000, and that is currently in the budget. And then later on, there's a presentation that David and I are going to put together on the ambulance utility. So we'll be up to 53 full-time employees. We'll be adding a mechanic. I know for the first year, I can't remember if it's first year or 2 years, ARPA money is going to pay for a mechanic. We added the city attorney in. That was in late or mid part of this year, and it is included 100% next year. But don't forget that we've also saved on the cost of hiring out an attorney. So it's not a wash, but you know, it does. It's not a full impact of the total salary. And then we're looking at 1 part-time reserve police officer, 1 part-time engineering work study, and 1 part-time police records clerk. So for the wages next year, according to contract, it's for the police, it's the third year of their 3-year contract at 5%. Fires in year 2 of a 3-year contract at 3%. The public union is still in negotiations, but I believe it's been input at 3% at this point. Non-union exempt at 3%, and same as non-union non-exempt, except for sergeants, which are 5% per contract. Health insurance, unfortunately, I think we do have that number, but I didn't update the slide. I apologize. I'll have it ready for next time. Any of those increases, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if we've received the police yet. I don't know if Sean can pipe in and say if we have or haven't received that yet. All the other employees, the health is in at 5.8%, vision no increase, dental a 2% increase, and standard life no increase.
We do have just recently received the information for the police, but it's not updated on the slide yet.
All right. Yeah, so we'll have to get that updated, and there'll be I don't know if there'll be an adjustment, or there might be a slight adjustment to the expenditures as a result. We'll have to have a look at that before the next presentation. Here's the capital facility plan in summary for 2022. Mike's going to present some of the stuff in maybe a little more detail than I am, but just to give a few of the projects, I'll just talk about the major projects in here. We have in the admin community development, we do have the city council chambers. That's for $300,000, and that's coming out of the ARPA federal grant, so that's fully funded. In the fire department, a lot of smaller projects that add up. The bigger one is we have to make a contribution each year. I believe it's for the next 5 years to the regional fire training tower in Walla Walla. That's at $65,000, and a few other smaller projects. The police, they're looking at completing the gun range for $23,000, and they have to put a chiller on the police building for $15,000. Parks, we should all know what that is by now. That's all Lions Park, 100%. In the stormwater, there's $680,000 worth of expenditures planned. That's a couple projects at Southeast Birch for $180,000, and then the street waste decant facility for $500,000. In the streets, it's planned for $2.8 million. Major projects there, the 4 bikes at $600,000, Safe Walk College Place at $364,000, Majonier Road from Blueview to College Avenue for $711,000, and the broadband project for $1 million. In the wastewater, we have the start of the wastewater treatment plant project at $2 million, and the lift station number 5 for $465,000, and the sewer lining project for $300,000. Normally, the sewer lining project isn't quite that much, but next year they're going to do a little more. We seem to have room in that fund, so that's good to have that project in there. Under the water, we're looking at almost $5 million in expenditures. Big portion of that is completing the well number 6 well house at $2.9 million. We have the Sky and 12th water main replacement for $617,000. The solar array at Whitman and Maple for $450,000. And a couple more projects, the 6th Street College to date, water main and services for $150,000. Development of the well number 7 for $510,000. And then we have $350,000 for the work on the water storage reservoir number 4. Total of those projects, $15 million. If you say it fast, it doesn't hurt. Here's the IT budget plan for 2022. The big one in there in the admin finance is the city hall generator at 200,000. Currently, we don't have any backup for power, or it doesn't work very well. So that's a required project. We also have traditional turnouts for fire of 12,000. There's a fire marshal replacement vehicle at 54,000, and our SCBA replacement at 28,000. Also in fire, the fire captain's truck, 54,000, and then a brush truck for 125. And then the big one is the fire truck replacement for 700,000, and that's going to come out of, oh, you know what I'm doing? I'm going through the next one here. Sorry, I got it backwards. So under the fire there, those are the big projects. 700,000 for the fire truck replacement. That's 100% under the ARPA funds, 100% funded. Under the police, we have our traditional or our yearly leasing program. It's 157,000. We have a taser replacement for 17. A park vehicle, or under the parks, we have one vehicle replacement. It's an old 2000 Chevy pickup. Under stormwater, 750,000 for the Vector truck replacement. And that is coming 85% out of a ecology grant, and the balance under the equipment replacement fund. We also have in the streets, we have a replacement of Stellar truck for 90. We have a Flusher truck replacement for 250,000, and Jacob's contract amendment is in there for 116,000.
Brian,
Yes,
Councilmember Peterson has a question.
sure.
This is a question for Brian or Mike, real quickly. The leasing of the police vehicles, what's the verdict on that? I mean, I shouldn't say verdict. Let me back up. What are your thoughts on that? Still seems like a good process that we're going through with that, or we're kind of new into the cycle of it. Maybe it's too soon to say, but I'm kind of curious as to what the thoughts are on that.
Well, I mean, I believe it's been a success because it allows for the rotation of vehicles and keeping them newer and with the best equipment. I mean, reason why you saw it like Apex going in his next term here is that we're finishing out the changeover of the last bit of the fleet vehicles in the police department, because we still have those like old state police patrol vehicles with some of the officers, and we'll be changing those out. I know in talking with the officers, they seem very pleased with what we've done in that category.
Good. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and we'll know more where we feel about it when we come to the end of that term. And I believe we're in the 4th of a 6-year term. And don't forget, we're under the leasing program. We're only paying for the, we're not paying for the full value of the vehicle, only for the uncapitalized portion. So it's cheaper from purchasing the whole amount. It just depends on how long you want to run out your vehicles. So we'll be looking at that analysis again when it comes time to replace those. The last vehicle in there underwater is a replacement of 2006 Chevy pickup. Total expenditures for equipment replacement next year just short of $2.9 million. And now I'll go back to the IT. A lot of smaller projects in here that seem to add up. The big one in the admin finance is us looking at the ERP replacement that hopefully we'll have a decision here in the next couple months about moving forward with that project and bring that to council. Also down in our staffing, we have of course, we have our Intermountain IT support. It's 64,000. And a lot of other small projects and IT software. We're actually doing very well on our hardware replacement and have kept up. And there's not a lot of money in for hardware replacement next year. We do have some body cams and redaction software for 22,000 in the police, and some other security cameras at the city parks for 9,000. We have some backflow testing software with the fact that the iWork isn't working out, so it's in there for 10,500. And some replacement. We still are using the iWork asset management system for now, and that's close to 11,000. Mike will have the full list of the projects in his presentation. So here we are at the proposed utility rates that we'll bring to council in December. And right now we're looking at the water subtotal of a 4% increase, which for the base rate goes from 42.86 up to 44.46. The wastewater total, it's at 3% total, and increasing from 96.20 to 99.47 for the base amount. And then stormwater increase of 3% from $106 to $110 per month. The next steps in the budget process, we're still going to go through and continue to look at our interfund balances and our grant revenues to make sure that all ties out. We'll be looking at possibly meeting with departments if we need to examine costs in more detail, and updating Questica budget, that also includes, we have to upload all that information into BIAS to get that in there for next year. But that process will really happen near the end for BIAS as the final numbers go in. So that's the presentation. Any questions?
Let's go through council members for questions. Councilmember Bobbitt,
No, pretty thorough. Thank you, Brian.
Councilmember Cleveland,
No questions.
Councilmember Peterson,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman. I'll
No
go back
question.
to you, Selby. I knew it as soon as I said it. Okay, thank you, Heather. Councilmember Selby.
So we are starting the internet program in the next fiscal year. Is that what I understood?
You mean a new ERP system?
No, I mean the internet for the town.
Oh, the broadband. I mean,
Yes.
that's the goal. I mean, we put in a placeholder for it because there's about 5 grants that have been submitted. So one would think one of them would pencil to some degree.
Thank you.
And don't forget, a lot of those projects will go depending on whether we get the grants or not.
Yeah, that's just one that I'm really interested in seeing go, because I think that will make a huge difference for the town. So thank you.
Read. Councilmember Boyle.
No questions. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we let Brian go for a bit? All right. All right, Brian, thank you very much for that. Helping us understand that a little bit more.
Oh. Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
Great night, everyone.
It's like, wait, did I miss something? All right.
That's what I get for giving him some control.
See?
I thought I was stopping the screen share.
And it's so funny because like as soon as we heard the recording stopped, we all just froze. All right, so let's go moving on. We have, we're in the public hearings section. So we have a public hearing scheduled for tonight on the 2022 revenue and property tax levy that Mr. Carlton just presented, and we'll give a quick brief update in case any of us forgot.
All right, I'll share my screen, but I won't stop the recording. I'll start off. We're required to do the public hearing. Do we have to open the public hearing?
You do your presentation first, then we open the public hearing.
Okay. So this is the same presentation, the same numbers that were in the budget presentation you just had. So this is our major sources of revenue for 2020. Just a few other things. We're expecting the COVID-19 impacts to subside. We expect the business activity in College Place to continue at historical increases, although we did subdue those a little and not showing huge increases. And we are putting in a recommendation for a 1% property tax increase, and I'll get into that in the next presentation. The grant revenues, we need to reconcile that to CIP to make sure we're tracking it all through. Interfund transfers are not included in this revenue, but are adjusted to reflect fund balance after expenditures are finalized. And county property tax estimates, actually they are available. I should have taken that comment out. So I did receive those a couple of weeks ago. So those are the correct numbers in the property tax based on the county's assessment. This is a summary of the same revenues that were in the other program. And I don't know if you need me to go through them in detail again, but if you have any questions about them, now's your chance.
Any questions? All right. At this time, I will open up the public hearing.
Oh, no, I have to go through the property
Oh, you still got more. All right.
Yeah, this was just the revenue piece.
Sorry about that. Wasn't rushing you.
That's okay. So here's a presentation on our property tax levy recommendation for next year. And we'll vote on, you guys will vote on that on the, I believe it's the 9th of November meeting. Now, it's all based on our assessed valuation, and our assessed valuation comes from the county. They put out their recommendations, and like I just said, that we got that a couple weeks ago. Now, what has happened is our valuation has gone up approximately 21%. For 2022, based on the county. They're anticipating, so the regular valuation is at 895,000. Oh, one thing I should apologize for, when I did the initial presentation that was sent out early last week, I had included the new construction. I double counted it in the total of the assessed valuation, so it was overstated. So I've made the correction, and it's in this presentation properly. I apologize for that. There's the total valuation that the county's putting in at $906 million. Prior year, $752 million. So that's a change of $155 million in assessed valuation. So as you recall, by state RCW, we are only allowed to increase our rate 1% a year. So that's the total amount of revenue by 1%. So that can translate into a lot lower levy rate if your assessed value goes way up. And you're going to see that as we move through the presentation. So the 2021 levy was $1.554 million. With a 1% increase, that brings it up to $1.569 million, an increase of only $16,000 with the 1% increase. So it really doesn't keep up with inflation. Our current estimates on inflation right now, the CPIW that's out for the last quarter was almost 6% increase. So definitely our costs, our ability to increase our property tax levy is limited. The county also gives a new construction calculation, and they're estimating next year at just over $12 million. That's an increase from this year of 25,000 only. In 2020, there was about $15 million worth of construction activity. So here's the levy amount calculation. You can see that the 101% of 2021 is the $1.569 million with new construction of 25 for a total of $1.9594 million. If you look at per 1,000 of the assessed value, that's 1.7, just round those up, $1.76 per $1,000 worth of assessed value. The prior year, it was 2.06. That seems like you're saving a lot of money, but the assessed values went up so much that it reduces the per 1,000 levy rate. So really, I guess if your assessed value doesn't go up on your home, then you're going to save money. But if your value goes up by 20, it's looking like 20%, which is the largest increase that in years. And I have a slide later on that will show that. So it looks like you're saving money, but if your value doubles, then your property tax is not going to quite double because the levy rate is actually on the decrease. There's a certain portion of our property taxes that goes to pay off one of our bond levies, and it has a little lower valuation due to seniors don't pay that amount, and it drops it down from that $906 million to $892,000, and that's our long-term debt on one of our general obligation bonds. That's the payment that's due next year, and that results in a per thousand levy rate of 55 cents per thousand of assessed value. So you combine those together, we have that regular levy rate of 1.76. We have the bond rate of 55. With the 1% increase, that's $2.3 per 1,000 of assessed value. Without the increase, it would be 2.28. When you look at it combined with the changes that have occurred from 2021, you can see that last year the combined rate was 272 per 1,000. This year we're looking at 2.29 to 2.3, depending on if we go with the 1% increase. And you can see what the change is. And it only results in that, that small increase, that $15,000, $16,000 increase in revenues to the city. Here's the impact, and you can see in 2022 that valuation has gone up to $906 million from $752 million from last year, a 21% increase. Pretty unprecedented in the last 10 years. The numbers that I have don't go back further, but that's a huge increase. Again, that always brings up that affordable housing issue. prices continue to go up at that rate.
That's incredible.
Here's a summary from 2011 to 2022 of the new construction. So the county is anticipating that it's going to be pretty much the same as 2021 for us. And that's the numbers we use. And for everybody, this is how each dollar is spent on taxes. And you can see that $2.72 of each dollar comes back to us at College Place. So that money that you're paying for your property taxes goes to a lot of other things besides us. Local schools get 12 cents. The state school fund, 25. There's our College Place general fund and the debt for the 272. It's the EMS levy. We have the other cities get 10 cents. School enrichment is 18.5 cents. County current expense gets 19 cents. Port of Walla Walla gets 2.7 cents. And there's some miscellaneous in there, various other entities. So you can see we don't get a large piece of the pie. You can see that's kind of drawn out there in that circle. And that's it for that presentation.
Completely done?
That's done, yeah.
Okay.
Honest.
Okay. Before I move on, my internet is spotty. For some reason, I keep getting kicked out of Zoom. So if I get kicked out, I'll work to get back in, but in order to keep things moving, I'm going to put Mayor Pro Tem Lauren Peterson on the spot. Yeah, Lauren, I emailed you the script to your Gmail. It's there, and Lisa will help you identify where we're at should I get kicked off, so that we can keep things rolling.
All right, up to Lisa then. Good.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So now I will open up for public hearing. Lisa, on my notes, I have 2 people submitted written testimony that would be in the packet. Is that correct? Because I did not see it.
Oh, goodness sakes. I made that error again. I am sorry.
That's okay. I had it checked just in case. Okay. So did anyone else submit a comment or arrange to speak?
No, they did not. And we still do not have any Zoom attendees.
Okay. So is there any additional discussion from the council? And if not, is there a motion to close the hearing?
Councilmember Peterson, that dollar breakout is pretty interesting. That would be something sometime in the future, no hurry. That'd be something great to put in a newsletter. Perhaps we already have and I missed it, but I think that's great information for the citizens of College Place to see.
I was just thinking we needed to put it up on our social media page.
Yeah. Out on the front bulletin board.
Yeah, right. Yep. Pin it to the top.
Brian, I'm just curious, what other cities do our property taxes go to, and why? And maybe that's an obvious answer that I'm just not thinking of.
I can touch on that a little bit.
Thanks, Mike.
So the state has like this general city county assistance fund to help like smaller cities. And so basically it's like a rob Peter and pay Paul type thing. Where bigger cities, where it ended, and really all cities get a distribution out of this fund. It's very minuscule. It's very minuscule in the scheme of things, but it is a revenue. And I would say at the end of the day, for what our citizens, we're a mid-sized city, so for what we pay into it, last time I looked at it, it came out to about what we end up getting back in the revenue. But like the bigger cities, like your Tacomas and Seattles and ones like that, they pay more into it and get less back. So it's a general like sharing account type thing.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I move that the public hearing be closed.
I'll
Lauren,
second.
you're
I
up.
think we lost her.
So
Do we have a second?
Councilmember Sherman seconded.
All in favor?
She's back.
Aye.
I
Opposed, same sign. It's carried. I see Norma's back. Yeah, sorry.
Hey, it looks like you kept rocking and rolling. Thank you.
No,
All right, so we just had a, did we?
I'm sorry, Norma, we voted, yeah, we opened, we voted to close the public hearing, and we are now voted on that, and we're ready to move into action items, so I understand the process.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everybody. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's move on to action item. And the first action item is College Place Local Road Safety Plan, and Mr. Rizzatello will present on that.
Okay, I'll just provide Cliff's notes of this because this all went to you before. Basically, this plan, in order to get Washington State Department of Transportation funds, and this is new for this year, you have to have an adopted local road safety plan that identifies your critical areas for improvements needed, and then you are eligible for a slew of grant funds that the DOT administers. As you've seen when this was presented previously, our major nodes or trouble areas are like Larch and Whitman, your Larch and 12th, SR 125 and Meadowbrook, 125 in College. A lot of the larger ones that one could infer would be problem areas are. And there's a grading mechanism for this. So our engineering intern in Blue Zones and the MPO, they were integral in putting this data together. It has all the crash data, everything else, major team effort. This has been presented workshops, past council meetings, and now it's finally moving forward, hopefully for your approval today. And if it does get approved, it'll go to DOT, MPO, and everyone else. So it's in their documents, and we can start getting another source of grant funds.
All right. So let's go through council members for questions. And I like grant funds, another source of grant funds. So let's move it. Okay, Mr. Bobbitt.
I thought it was well presented in our workshops too. So thank you, Mike. No questions.
Mr. Cleveland.
No questions.
Oh,
did you not hear from me? No questions.
I think we lost Mayor Hernandez again.
Okay.
So Peterson, I have no questions. Councilmember, go ahead.
Yeah, Councilmember Selby, I just always come after you. I have no questions, but I would just like to brag that Kia is one of my students. She was the intern that did this.
And she's back. We're to Councilmember Sherman.
Councilmember Sherman.
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Mike.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions. Thanks, Mike.
All right. So if there's no other questions, is there a motion?
I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 21-047, which adopts the College Place Local Road Safety Plan.
Perfect. Is there a
Councilmember
second?
Boyle, I'll second.
Great. Any additional discussions? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 God.
And you're on again, Mr. Peterson.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Where were we at?
The vote was
Nose.
all in favor. Everybody said aye.
Aye, okay, all opposed, same sign. That's carried.
Thank you. We'll move to the AV system now.
All
I
right.
won't wait for the mayor's introduction.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Mr. Ricard. Yes.
Good evening, council and mayor, if you're out there. So we had an RFP out for architectural design services to help us with our council room renovation and AV design. The RFP focused on the council room renovation area, really focusing on the AV system and to get us a system that is state-of-the-art, hybrid, capable of handling both in-person and meetings via Zoom at the same time, closed captioning, broadcasting live to YouTube with a sophisticated camera system that would catch each speaker that is live at the meeting. Also part of the design is to do some City Hall spatial planning for future growth into the Sallyport area and the jail cell area, and possibly a small addition to accommodate the growing staff needs at the City Hall. We had two proposals that were submitted, Design West Architects and Meyer Architecture and Engineering. They were very competitive proposals. We had a 5-member evaluation team that scored both of the submittals. And in the end, Meyer Architecture and Engineering was selected as the most qualified firm for this project. It's a phased project. Phase 1 would be the City Hall, the council room, AV design, bidding and construction assistance, and some commissioning allowance. Phase 2, we'd come back to you. That would be the detailed construction plans for the spatial planning that we'll do in Phase 1 for the City Hall expansion and remodel of the jail area. So we're asking for authorization for the mayor to enter into a contract with Meyer Engineering and Architecture. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I'm going to switch computers. But in the meantime, let's go for questions. Councilmember Bobbitt.
So, the 150,000, that's primary for the design, right?
Yes, that is the design. That includes 38,700 for overall design. So things from your lighting, the dais. We would have a fixed dais for all of the council and mayor and staff. It would include HVAC redesign of 17,000. The AV design, which is the most expensive portion at just over 53,000. They'll help us with the bidding process. That's $4,000. And then construction assistance, which will likely be less because we have our building official is pretty knowledgeable in the construction process. So, but that's at 26,000 if needed. And then the commissioning allowance is a little over 11,000. And what that is at the end of the project, they'll have a third party come in and test each system and then provide operating manuals and things of that nature. And it basically fleshes out any issues that may be there that we're just not aware of.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cleveland, any questions?
No questions.
Councilmember Selby,
No questions.
Councilmember Sherman,
No question. Thanks.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions. Thank you.
Lisa, point of clarity, if you're Mayor Pro Tem, am I allowed to recommend a motion, or is that, should that be left to others?
You are still a full council member with all your voting rights.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we hadn't crossed the line there. Okay.
Nope.
Okay, if there are no discussion or questions, is there anyone who'd like to entertain a motion on this action item?
I'll motion to authorize Mayor Hernandez to enter into agreement with Meyer Architecture and Engineering for architectural design services for the council room renovation and audiovisual design in the amount not to exceed $150,000.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And it's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I see you're back. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going fine. This is it's good experience. Thank you.
Hopefully changing the computer helps.
Okay.
So the next
No
item
problem.
is a professional service contract, for Paul Hartwig, and Mr. Rizzatello will present that.
Okay, thank you. So we have a full-time public works director, but just be on the safe side. Who knows, there may be a time where something comes up, we need Paul to assist us, whether it be with the wells, asset management, because there's older records that he was wrapping up, getting together into a database and other items. And as such, in order to do that, we basically need a contractual arrangement to cover that. So that is what's before you. The rate at which he said that he would want to work for was the 36 an hour. That's what he's willing to do with that for whenever we would need him. And that's pretty much all that this is. Just if we need him and he does work for us, that is the set rate of pay per hour. And that is a very basic standard contract for a contractor. So that's all this is.
All right, thank you, Mike. Let's go to council members. Mr. Bobbitt, any questions or comments?
Sounds like a good thing to do and a reasonable contract. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland?
No questions, but it's nice to have Paul available for when/if we need him.
Mr. Peterson?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Selby?
I think this is a great idea. I tend to think the hourly rate is low for what we would be getting. But I guess if he said it, I guess we should go with that, but it kind of bothers me a little. I think we're underpaying.
Well, I did too, but that's what he requested, so.
I think we have a special place in his heart. Ms. Sherman?
I had the same comments as Melody, but I like that he's willing to still help us. I don't think he's ready, or we're not ready to get rid of him, obviously, but thanks.
Ms. Boyle?
No questions. Happy to see that we can keep him connected.
Absolutely. All right, if there's no other questions or comments, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve professional services contract with Mr. Paul Hartwig.
I will second.
Perfect. Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. The next item is the State Public Works Board loan agreement for Sky Avenue and Mountain View Water Main replacement. And Mr. Rizzatello, you are up again.
Okay, thank you. Really, the next three items are in the same finance program at the state, just different projects. So this is very competitive And we actually got awarded 4 projects. The 3 before you are the 3 that the state have contracts drawn up for. The 4th one, I'm still waiting on them to get the contract to us. So this one right here, is you all may recall, and this has been a CFP for a couple of years now, we need to move some decayed water main over at Sky and Mountain View, because right now it goes in people's backyards and alleys, and in general is really funky, and essentially move it out into the street right away, because then it'll be easier for our staff access, and it'll be the newer material, because that still is the old iron pipe that's been decaying that we need to replace out. There's very few areas left, but that is one. This was budgeted last year. However, the cost shot up through the roof. We do have ARPA money and some other funding available for this. However, cost escalation on a lot of these projects has been extreme, and this project needs to be done. So this is a stopgap in case we get into it with that Sky and Mountain View project. Public Works Trust Fund, the interest on that's like 0.9%. And then also, it's similar to like what we had with the drinking water well money. We're based on how much money you take out, what your debt load is. They do forgive a portion because we do qualify under hardship. So there's 3 projects that we got funding for. This is the first one, and this is finally a deal with the Sky and Mountain View water once and for all. And this is in the amount of $617,000.
Okay, great. Let's go for questions. Councilmember Bobbitt.
It's about time we get to this. Thanks, Mike.
Councilmember Cleveland.
No questions.
Councilmember Peterson.
No questions.
Councilmember Selby.
No questions.
Councilmember Sherman.
No question. Thank you.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions.
All right, if there's no additional questions or comments, can I please have a motion on this resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 21-048, which directs city administrator to sign an agreement with the State Public Works Board for the Southeast Sky Avenue and Mountain View area water main replacement project.
I'll second.
Great. Any additional discussions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it and the motion is passed. Right, next item is the State Public Works Board loan agreement for the wastewater lift station number 5 replacement.
Okay, thank you. This is a similar concept, different project though. This is for wastewater lift station number 5. Now, this one is a relatively newer issue that popped up on a capital facility plan. Paul identified this when we were trying to figure out projects to go after for federal money. Because I wasn't really aware of this one until late last year, early this year. So on Southwest 1st Street, mid-block, we actually have a wastewater lift station that's in this like coffee can type contraption in the middle of a sidewalk. And it's too narrow for our staff to safely access. Plus, it's also a tripping hazard as it's in the middle of a sidewalk. And then it also has no electrical generator. So if there's a power outage on Southwest 1st, as it stands, like right now, we would have an issue. We'd have to get a mobile generator. Otherwise, you could have wastewater backups over there. So what this will entail is funding essentially where we would need to buy a little bit of land. There is some empty land on the other side of the 1st Street between Davis and Academy Way. Build a legitimate small building for this lift station, as well as enough space so we could actually get staff to safely access it. And it would also have an emergency generator so we wouldn't be endangering stuff where it could potentially fail like it could now. So that's what this project is for lift station number 5. It's a fun engineering, some minor land acquisition, and then construction of the replacement lift station.
All right, Councilmember Bobbitt, questions or comments?
No questions. It seems like we talked about this in one of the workshops.
Yeah, we did because it's been on other lists, and that was also get your approval to go after this money, and now we got it.
Yeah, I remember a picture of it.
Yeah.
Councilmember Cleveland,
No questions.
Councilmember Peterson,
Questions, thank you.
Councilmember Selby,
No questions.
Councilmember Sherman,
No questions.
and Councilmember Boyle.
No questions. Thanks.
All right, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion on this resolution?
This is Councilmember Selby. I will move to adopt resolution number 21-049, which directs the city administrator to sign an agreement with the State Public Works Board for the wastewater lift station number 5 replacement.
Second.
Second.
Councilmember Cleveland.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. You can't go silent on me for that long because I thought I got disconnected again. All right, so next is a State Public Works Board loan agreement, drinking water well number 7.
Okay, this is the third one. So with this one, this is a fund engineering for another well. So we've been talking about wells pretty much since I've worked here. Thing to keep in mind is that with the well that we're wrapping up and the other one was constructed, we're only back to where we were 5 years ago when we had like 3 functioning wells and then we went to 1 well. So we'll be at 3 wells. However, in that same time frame, the population has grown. So we really need another hole in the ground. I mean, if you go to City of Cheney, for example, not much bigger than us, but they have 8 wells and we have 3. The idea with this one is that we have extra land on property we acquired for the lift station for the southwest sewer. So the concept is that we put the well out there and that will eventually help support the whole growth area around Stone Creek, Majanier, the new school. It's going to go out there. It would be near all of that. So this helps with the engineering and get that started because we have the wastewater that we're finishing up out there, but the other part of the equation is they have additional sources of water out there as well. So that's what this is for.
All right, let's go for questions. Mr. Bobbitt?
So this approximate $1.5 million will actually bring this well to completion, right?
This will get the engineering done and get it out to bidding. I believe we will have to go for additional construction money. It is on the federal list because when you build these wells, there's just a lot of extra costs in construction. So I think it'll get us most of the way there. But I've learned not to count the chickens before they hatch with what we've seen with the other well projects. So it's all speculative until we have those final construction plans. Right now, we don't even have preliminary. We have land where we know we're going to put it at, and then we need to get a hole in the ground pretty much. So,
Okay, thanks for clarification.
yeah.
Mr. Cleveland?
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson?
No questions.
Ms. Selby?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Sherman?
No questions. Thanks.
Ms. Boyle?
No questions.
All right, do we have a motion on this resolution then?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 21-050, which directs city administrator to sign an agreement with the State Public Works Board for the drinking water well number 7 project.
Second.
All right. Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. Thank you for that, Mike. So we're going to move on to the pilot management of youth recreation program with Sunbridge. And Mike will continue.
Okay, thank you. This was identified in the prioritization list you all adopted back in July with the American Rescue Plan money. The issues, as you know, one of the desires of the city was to have the organized youth program, and Campfire has helped us. Campfire and United Way have helped us with doing the pilot summer rec program, but really there's been a deeper desire to go past that. Still incorporate it, but have more. So the College Place School District and the city and Sunbridge and Campfire and a lot of others have been talking. The other big issue we have is that there is a lot of programming going on as well, but not a lot of people know about it or share it. And I don't have the time to know everything to get it on social media to share it. So where the conversations have gone to is that between the school district and the city, and then in talking with Sunbridge, basically that they would act like as a clearinghouse for if any signups are needed for programs, for getting the word out and helping curate stuff on the social media, and then also for the marshaling of volunteers and stuff for some sports programs. The other thing as well is we were trying to like, how do you extend the best value of the dollar with this program? And really it's through having a nonprofit take it and do working on it, because like if we had a park and rec position here, if you look back like at old labor agreements and other things like that, way back in the day there was such stuff, and you could see increased costs because it's government positions. However, a lot of this has started via partnerships. So therefore the thought is to continue it and then also work with Sunbridge on developing this. And we would still have our partnership with the United Way and Campfire, but it's essentially just building a greater thing and doing it in a more cost-effective way by partnering with a nonprofit who already has a lot of feelers out in the community to begin with. And we also bring, we believe that brings a heavy donor component as well, where we believe we could get a lot more private donors to this as well, with Sunbridge acting as the clearinghouse. I would state that an identical agreement is also going to go before the College Place School District Board as well for them to pony up to Sunbridge.
All right, let's go for questions or comments, starting with Councilmember Bobbitt.
No questions.
Councilmember Cleveland,
No questions.
Councilmember Peterson,
No questions.
Councilmember Selby,
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Sherman,
No questions.
Councilmember Boyle.
No questions.
All right, if there's no additional questions or comments, is there a motion on this resolution?
I'll motion to adopt resolution number 21-051, which permits mayor to sign memorandum of understanding with Sunbridge for management of youth recreation program for 2021 to 2022 calendar year.
Second, Councilmember Peterson.
All right, first and a second, any additional discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. All right, next item is amendment number 5 to the agreement for operations, maintenance, and management service for the WWTP by Mr. Rizzatello.
Hey, thank you. So this has to do with essentially the equipment, since instead of having to pay for our own equipment, we have that the concept of the addendum for them to provide the equipment. And then also some additional maintenance above and beyond what was initially anticipated with the wastewater treatment plant. So this agenda item and the following one, this one is for remainder of 2021 because it took them a while to source the equipment, because much like everything else, we've stayed in past meetings with everyone getting ARPA money and ordering things. It's a pain to source anything this year in general. So it affected them as well. So that is so anyway, that is the agreement for operations and maintenance at the treatment plant. That's Jacob's group. And this one that you're seeing for this item is essentially dealing with this year, and then the following one goes into the agreement for the following year. Fairly standard, and they've been a very good operator for the wastewater treatment plant. So, and in many years, we've been getting essentially money back from them from cost efficiencies and other things that they've done while out there. So they've been a great partner to the city.
Wonderful. Okay, Mr. Bobbitt, questions or comments?
Please come back to me on reviewing this agreement.
Okay, Mr. Cleveland,
No questions.
Mr. Peterson,
No questions, thanks.
Ms. Selby.
I would just comment that because of teaching this, I work with them on a fair amount to get students out there and back and forth and things, and they've been really good to work with.
Good. Ms. Sherman,
No questions.
Ms. Boyle.
No questions, thanks.
All right, Mr. Bobbitt, I went as slow as I could.
No, everything looks good. I'm just trying to figure out what CH2M stands for. I can't remember.
Well, they aren't known as that anymore anyway. Now they're Jacob's group. So because you'll see that in the historical perspective when we initially contracted with them as CH2M, and then Jacobs bought them out.
So we can say Jacob's Group instead of that CH2M.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay, thank you. So can I make a motion now?
You can make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to recommend approving amendment number 5 as submitted by the Jacobs Group for operation, maintenance, and management services of the wastewater treatment plant for 2021.
Is there a second?
I'll second. This is him.
Okay, any additional discussions? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. Next item is amendment number 6 to the agreement for operations, maintenance, and wait, that's one I just went through, right? Or is that a different one?
No, it's the same one except for next year. And I mean, pretty much that's exactly what I was going to say. What I went over for this year, just scratch out 2021 and put 2022, and that's what this is for. So, yeah.
All right. So rather than going through all the council members, does anybody have any questions on this one?
I see it's got a few cents added.
Yeah.
Inflation, you know.
Still less than what CPIW is. So,
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, I've just moved to approve amendment number 6 as submitted by CH2M for operation, maintenance, and management services of the wastewater treatment plant for 2022.
Is there a second?
Second, Councilmember Cleveland.
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. Okay, moving along. The next item is well number 6, well house construction bid. Mr. Rizzatello is going to present on behalf of Mr. McAndrews.
okay. I was wondering if we would ever get here, because with the second well, the state revised their engineering standards for water wells and systems. So we had to go through an additional review on well number 6. And then just general sourcing and things related. This one's been a nightmare to get off the ground, and we're finally to the point where we're ready to award the well house because the hole's in the ground. So Schneider Drilling, they drilled that over a year ago, and it's just been capped up till now. So bids came in. luckily, because we had sizable contingency amounts and what we requested from Department of Health and our appropriation, this was above the initial engineer estimate, but keep in mind that was before the new standards took effect, and then additional work that needed to be done out there plus time. I mean, this thing's been going on for a couple of years. So Nelson was the low bidder on it. They turned in all stuff they needed to. So this will allow us to move forward and actually get this project finally wrapped up for once and for all. And that's the new well site out at Whitman and Maple.
All right, let's go through council members for questions. Mr. Bobbitt,
No questions. Thanks, Mike.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions.
Mr. Peterson.
You know, I would just say, we think back, I think, what was it, 2 summers ago, Mayor, where we were, what was it, one well and another one limping, right?
Yes, yes.
I mean,
Scary.
yeah, and you look at where we're at now, or will be here before next summer, hopefully, and whatnot. That's and more to come, but good job to everybody. That's that uncertainty, I think, is behind us here, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Incredible progress in such a short time. Okay, Ms. Selby,
No questions.
Ms. Sherman,
No questions.
Ms. Boyle.
No questions.
All right, do we have a motion then?
This is Councilmember Selby. I will move to award the bid for the well house construction to Nelson Construction Corporation in the amount of $2,640,877.88.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, if there's no additional discussion, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the ayes have it, the motion is passed. Next is the water system consolidation and well number 2 relocation contract amendment number 6. And Mr. Rizzatello will once again present for Mr. McAndrews.
Hey, thank you. So this is a change order with RH2 for the amount of about a little north of $131,000. What is taken into account is, again, the duration this thing has gone, because if this could went under normal review, like the Peppers Bridge well, we probably could have got this done about a year sooner, but the state wanted to put us under their new guidance, and that turned into a lot of fun. So there was extra cost there. And then also buried within this is there is some longer term work as part of this new well project via programming language, SCADA, other things that they're going to do when they get this new well online, that'll act as a further safeguard to help prevent that water situation we had a couple of more than a couple weeks ago. But it'll address that as well. RH2, the thing I will say about them is that they have stayed within budget constructs when stuff was done according to time, and the Department of Health and everyone else stayed within the time constraints. So, I mean, that's why I'm in support of this, because on their past work, they have delivered with what they promised. It's just with this, there were a lot of externalities that ultimately impacted this well site, but we need them to essentially do the project management and checking stuff as they're building the well house, and to get all the SCADA and other things going, so that way all of the wells have the same programming language controls, and it'll help us to knock on wood, avoid what occurred. So yeah.
And Mike, if I can add, there is sufficient funding in our Department of Health loans to cover this amendment.
Yeah, luckily when we put that in, we put in a sizable contingency, just because when you're doing projects of this scope, unfortunately, it's what happens.
And as someone who woke up Sunday morning to no water that few weeks ago, I appreciate getting this worked on. Let's go through questions. Councilmember Bobbitt,
No questions. It looks good.
Mr. Peterson,
No questions. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions.
Ms. Selby. You're on mute.
Okay, after 3 times trying to click on that, no questions.
Ms. Sherman
No questions.
and Ms. Boyle.
No questions, thanks.
All right, if there's no more questions or no questions or comments, is there a motion? Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, Councilmember Peterson, I would move to approve contract amendment number 6 for the relocation of well number 2, authorizing an increase in engineering costs of 131,792.
I'll second.
Wonderful. We have first and a second. Any additional discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The motion is passed. Okay, the next item is outfitting the new Stellar truck for snow and ice, just on time. Mr. Rizzatello is going to present on that as well.
Yep. So we're trying to move quickly on this so we could, because they're in stock and we want to get this naturally before we get into winter season. I'm sure you all heard it, but last winter, I would say there were a number of complaints about snow removal. And a big part of that was the equipment. Now we do have a grader, but this was in what you all approved for the American Rescue Plan in July, again, that Stellar truck, because we had to delay that due to the grader costing more just due to the bidding environment and everyone buying everything with the ARPA money. So we are now at this point of acquiring the Stellar truck so it can be outfitted and ready to go. We want it outfitted with the appropriate snow removal equipment so it can do several things. It was above the 95,000 estimate in the ARPA. We do have enough funds to cover a differential because you can see contingency and everything else. We have it slated from what we were doing with the check and about 120. We just think it's imperative to move on this because literally every week when we're speccing these things, the cost is going up because everyone's buying everything and not enough vehicles are getting made to essentially supply everyone. So we've had a couple of vehicles where our order was just outright canceled because they didn't have the vehicle. And then we had to go to essentially another supplier. So we want to move on this immediately. So that's why it's for your approval.
All right, thank you, Mike. Councilmember Bobbitt, questions or comments?
No questions.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions.
Mr. Peterson,
No questions. Quick comment. You know, a lot of I think the forecasts are for us to have a colder winter. Who knows? But for the Northwest for this coming winter. So timing on this is perfect. Thank you.
absolutely. Ms. Selby.
My only question is, how much will this allow us to increase where we plow? Or is that basically constrained by staffing?
I think it's a little bit of A and B. So I mean, the new public works director, he's going to be working on different schedules, I would say, where we have 2 folks on when we get into bad snow incidents. And then the other thing was lack of equipment because before, I mean, we had a truck and then we had a 1976 grader that worked when it wanted to. And when you get into these bad snowstorms, if it decides to conk out, which it did twice last year, you're in a world of hurt. So I think this will help us improve getting to other areas sooner because we have the new grader and then we'll have this. So, I mean, I don't think we'd have near the level of times where the equipment broke down as it's done in the past because it was very old equipment.
Great, thank you. And I don't know, I think I'm going to work on, I got so many complaints from people who chose to drive when their road wasn't plowed. And then we're like, but I hurt my car. And so I'm like, haven't you heard of Zoom? Anyway, so yes, I think this is great.
Yeah, it's it is a good thing. We did have a discussion during staff meeting about making sure that Public Works is ready for this, hoping to prevent something like last year, especially when it snowed all day. That was really difficult. By the time they finished the one road, the other one was already snowed over again. Okay, Ms. Sherman.
I don't have any questions, but I couldn't open the PDF on this one.
Yeah.
And I just now remembered it. I don't know if anybody else.
I couldn't open it either. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
Oh yeah, that's what I get.
Yeah. That's what,
It's
You wanna
not a
know
big
what
deal, but
you want to know what a stellar truck was.
yeah, I was hoping there was pictures.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
If I can, if you right click on the PDF, you can do an open as, and then you can open as a PDF. Open. Oh, it didn't do it the way I happened to me. I had the same problem, but I could open it up by right clicking on it and opening it up as a different type.
Oh well, we can look at it later.
Sorry.
It's late.
We had a free drive.
I'll get a corrected version put in there for you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Right, Ms.
We can
Boyle.
look at it at the Christmas parade, right?
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
I don't have any questions, but I think that this is a great idea. For as somebody whose road didn't rank to get plowed like for weeks during that terrible winter of 16, 17, I love the idea of
16.
that winter was really long for some of us on not priority streets.
All right. Is there any additional discussion?
Mayor, I have Councilmember Peterson, real quick. Mike, kind of as a sidebar here, are we able to contract with outside services to come in and help in emergencies? I know they're all tied up probably with the grocery stores and hospitals and everything else, but I know some places have on call, but perhaps the city is so large it really wouldn't have a significant impact to bring in some contract workers in an emergency.
I mean, as a backup, we could always put out an RFP to get someone on call if we needed them. I will tell you, calling around when we got into that really bad snowstorm last year, there was no one interested because I did call. Yeah, there was I'll just say there was a divergence of opinion on some stuff, and I ended up calling, and they were unfortunately booked solid with private jobs.
Yeah.
So if that's something we wanted to do, we would probably need to get out the RFP now, so we had someone under an emergency contract just if we called them out, so it was in their Rolodex.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's not a bad idea, though.
Yeah.
All right. Any additional questions or comments? All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the Stellar Unit flatbed and snowplow for the previously ordered Ram 5500.
Second, Councilmember Peterson.
All right. First and second, any additional discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The motion is passed. All right, moving on to administrative reports. We have several administrative reports, starting with the ambulance utilities by Chief Winter, and he's ready to go.
Kept talking about winter being a bad thing, and now here I am. Huh.
Too soon, David, too soon.
Okay. Lisa and Mike told me that they wanted me early in the program tonight, so I would be first at the administrative report, so I wouldn't be here all night. So now that I'm number 17 in the list.
And that's still first.
Oh,
in
I know.
administrative report.
I know, but it's still
Plus the
17.
presentations.
And be
The
very
longer
on
you complain, the longer you're here.
Yes. Trying not to say yes, dear, because that's just my natural response. Oh, we've been talking about the ambulance utility. This is my 6th time presenting for you fine folks. We started back in 2018 talking about ambulance. Then in 2019, we approved the study. And at that time, when we looked at it, we talked about hiring 5 people. And then we kind of put this on the back burner. We wanted to see how our ambulance responses actually were going to be and see if there was going to be enough call volume and enough demand of the service that would warrant hiring additional staff. Now, as you are well aware, through the last couple of presentations that I have presented over the last month or so, we are at a point where we have that data that shows that we are at the point where we need to hire some folks. And we really felt after presenting last week and in talking in staff meeting that we really needed to create a better picture, not only for you folks who understand the issue because you've been listening to me drone on and on about it, but also the public. And so we've put some information out on our website. We've created some charts and some graphs. And Brian will talk about what we've determined to be a billable unit. But if you look at the charts that I have provided in the one that's called ambulance calls there, PDF, you will see that we definitely have an increase this year. Both numerically there on the first slide. If we look at the second slide, you will also see a graphical presentation of that 20% increase in 2021. I did a polling of our numbers today. So I ran this chart last week. Our numbers today, we have already exceeded what we did all of last year. Still have over 2 months to go. So we are being burdened by the workload. We still enjoy what we do. We like giving back to our community. We like providing the service for our community. And I think it's a good service that we continue to provide for our community. And I'm not saying that we cut back on that, but we do need to provide some help to our volunteers in staffing this because our workload has increased first off by the community growing, but also through COVID responses. And lastly, through the legislation that has come out that has hindered law enforcement and what they can do. So now we go to those calls instead of them. So this is creating a workload for us. Have any questions about this? If not, I'll turn my time over to Brian where he can talk about what a billable unit is. Trying to get you out of here quick, so.
Yeah, initially when we presented last week, we had come up with a calculation that was sort of similar to what it was provided in the 2018 study. And we used that unit as a determination of what the rate would be. And that calculation came out to $8.52 per unit. Since our presentation, we've really not come up with a solution to what is our chargeable unit. There's different, for example, City of Walla Walla uses a billing customer as a unit. So each bill that goes out, they get charged 1 unit. And I can't remember the exact rate. I think it's Chief Winter, maybe you can help with that. I think it's $13.52.
1267, somewhere in there.
Okay, so around $13 a unit. So regardless of what kind of business you are, if you're a resident, whether you're a duplex, fourplex, an apartment complex, a commercial facility, you get a charge of that 1 unit. There's other jurisdictions that do a different calculation. For example, Pasco has a ambulance utility, and they've broken it down into an equivalent unit to a single family residence. So a single family resident is considered 2.3 individuals. And then, so they break down all, so if it's a fourplex, they, they divide that by the 2.3 and come up with a chargeable unit. So they do it that way. It can go as far as charging out per incident. So whoever incurs the most incidents is how you charge it out. So we don't have the answer. We're hoping and gonna do some more community outreach and some more analysis on what we're gonna consider a chargeable unit. Because it really affects the rate depending on how you look at the units. If we look at, for example, our number of bills that we send out approximately, and even then it depends on what utility you send it out as. For example, we have 2,533 water utility customers. If you charged it out on that, our rate, if that was the number of units that we bill out at, it's going to be over $13 per month to each individual. But if you look at stormwater, there's almost 3,000 chargeable units, so that reduces the rate. If we look at how we charge out per units, because of course we charge different rates depending on what type of customer you are. For stormwater, we have approximately 5,200 units, so that significantly reduces the unit, and the dollar per unit goes down. So we don't have the answer, and like I said, we want to do some community outreach and really look at this more closely to determine what's the appropriate rate and how we're going to charge it. So what we've done right now is in the proposed budget, we've included the 4 additional EMS employees without implementing the ambulance utility. We feel we can support that for a year, maybe 2 years, so we can use some time to determine how we're going to charge this out. Walla Walla, they approved theirs and announced it earlier this year, but it's not going into effect until 2023. So they gave some time for that to set in. So we'll take the time and come back with some recommendations or some analysis on what we feel the different options on the units are.
Brian, Councilmember Peterson, could you repeat what you just said there as far as you said, did you say that we have funding in the budget to move forward without utility rate?
Right now, in that budget I just presented, it includes the salaries for the 4 additional employees.
Without the $12
yes,
per
we do
aid
not,
or whatever.
We do not have the revenue in for the ambulance utility.
Got it.
We feel we can support it for a year without jeopardizing the current expense reserve requirements. But after that, it's,
got it.
I don't know if we can support it, to be honest.
Understand.
Yeah, and I would just add in talking with the community, the general feel I was hearing is, well, folks at least that seem against it. They just wanted more of a process around it. So I did refresh the web page that was up from the last time when we did the initial study. You put the graphs and stuff up that the Chief Winter provided, and as Brian said, through carefully sharpening our pencil, and thanks Brian and Deshri, and then also Chief Winter for work on this, we believe we have breathing room for a year, but then we get into a predicament. So we just want to make sure we get the ERU calc right, equitably, fairly, and we will have a proposal on that coming to you all. But it's just we're trying to do more of a calculated process around it.
I've got a quick question. Has there been any talk about, rather than it being like an all or nothing for the first year, doing like a the first year it just being like at the 35% of what it would end up being, the second year 65%, that way they're a wash, and the community has time to kind of get used to that line item being on there?
I mean, that hasn't been discussed. I mean, that definitely is an action too. The reason why we got to step back for a little bit point was, again, to do the additional outreach and to really get this into a correct spot, but that is an action as well.
You know, I'm sorry, I've just got, I guess my point with the units, I understand that if we were to copy what Walla Walla is doing, it would drive the rate up per bill. But I think it's, you know, I think it's always been really important for us to have comparability with Walla Walla, you know, when it comes to a lot of the activities we have, you know, the rates and whatnot. And I guess I would kind of caution against getting into too much math there, where there's a 2.3 equivalent unit or something. It gets a little hazy. I personally, you know, but I think when it's and I know the difference between Walla Walla and College Place, the difference between the large school as a percentage of the total population versus what you have in Walla Walla. There's all kinds of differences there, but you know. Boy, as closely as we could assimilate what they're doing, I think it becomes comparable then in our valley. But anyway, just a suggestion going forward.
I really like the idea of kind of like Councilmember Boyle was saying, is that like kind of phasing it in, essentially moving forward with a fairly low rate, get people kind of used to the idea. And if we find we need to make, you know, significant changes to how we are counting the units, and we can kind of do that alongside, I think, moving forward. I mean, the numbers to me that we've seen a few times here are pretty convincing that this is something that we need to sustainably fund. So I guess I'm a little reluctant to kind of, I guess, chew on it much longer.
Okay.
It's just my 2 cents, though.
And it doesn't have to be a discussion. It's just something to kind of noodle in your mind. I personally have a little bit of heartburn with the homeowner and the commercial having the same rate. I just kind of feel that, you know, the commercial's getting off the back of the citizens, right? So I'm feel a little hesitant and uncomfortable with that. So as we get those numbers, maybe we could, if you could help, maybe one way or the other, convince me or back me up, whichever way it is. I just don't feel comfortable right now that the citizens should be paying the same rate as our commercial clients. Just something to think about. And there wasn't, I think when we talked about it last time, 2 weeks ago, there was a story in the UB. So I think lots of citizens are aware that we are discussing this, so it won't be a complete surprise. Or as we do our outreach, that was a pretty big start. I think a big way to start our outreach. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. This is Council Member Jerry. Chief Winter, I see here where we have an average of 5 calls a day, and then in addition of more calls for service that was previously covered by our law enforcement. Can you give me an example of that type of service?
Sure. So we now go on welfare checks, which they used to do. We go on mental health checks, which they used to do. We go to suicide calls, which they used to go help us with. They don't anymore. Someone is taking a nap on the grass somewhere. We used to send law enforcement to make sure that they're taking a nap and not medically having issues, that they're just sleeping one off. We now go take care of that. those types of things.
And that's on top of the 5 calls a day for real ambulance needs.
That is at the moment part of the 5.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. Is it in addition to that average or part of? Okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so last year we were doing probably 4 calls a day. This year we're doing 5, and that is, some of that is the law enforcement calls.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Ms. Selby?
I would like to see, the next time we look at this, I would like to see some options that include what Councilmember Boyle suggested, that we phase in rather than funding it ourselves first and then going straight to full fees.
Okay.
I have another question. How
Mr.
much
Bobbitt?
of this is being funded by those who are receiving the service?
Please clarify that, please. Good understanding.
Well, you know, there's an expense for the community to have the service available, but how much of that expense is actually being charged to those who are asking for the service or using it, I should say?
I don't know if I have that chart in here. Maybe Brian knows that off the top of his head, but I know nursing homes are about 44% of what we do. Single family residences are about 41% of what we do. We collect about $200,000 a year from fees for service. And the rest comes out of current expense and levy. Answering what you're asking?
Well, I need the use of an ambulance. Do I get a bill?
Yeah.
None of this will take away your bill. Sorry.
So I'm just asking, that bill covers how much percentage of this service?
That's a CPA question, Brian.
I don't have those numbers in front of me or in my head. I believe it's about, if you look at our total costs of ambulance and EMS, it looks like it covers about 50%.
Chief Winter?
So what we bill and what we get reimbursed is about 50%. So then the current expense is currently funding that. And the shortfall with this additional staff is approximately $500,000. In addition to the 50%, so it's a significant dollar amount.
What about the nursing home calls? They seem to be the majority of the calls. How does that build out?
They're billed out through whatever insurance they might have or Medicaid. And on insurance calls, we collect about 50% of what we bill. That isn't necessarily 50% of cost. That's just 50% of what we bill. They pay about $350 a call on average. Medicaid pays about $61. And then once a year, Medicaid cuts us a check for half the difference of what it costs for a Medicaid call.
And then what type of calls do we get from nursing homes? Are they all, medical emergencies that we transport one of their clients to a hospital?
So we only do emergency transports. We don't do interfacility transports. They have buses for that. And about 20% of all our responses, the city of Walla Walla still does the transport on because they're at a higher level of care than we currently administer.
Okay. Okay.
Councilmember Peterson here. I think at the end of the day, we're headed on the right course of deciding what a unit is. We've got to figure that out because regardless if we want to phase this in not phase it in, if we want to go full. I agree with the perspective and the process of actually doing more research into what a unit is. If that, don't want to be in a hurry to get that done and have something that we don't like on January 1 or something like that. But I think it's something I agree with the group as far as needing to come up and identify what some sort of a foundation for what a unit billing is. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some numbers in front of me here, and from 2020, the percentage of calls for EMS, single family were 45% of the total calls. There was 4,273 calls. Nursing homes were 41%, commercial 3%, and the school 6%, and multifamily 5%. So, you know, it's pretty much a split between nursing homes and at 41%, with 59% coming from everybody else. That helps answer your question about call frequency.
Remind me how many nursing homes we have in College Place?
4 of various, and one of those is not chargeable because they are all Medicaid beds, and we're not allowed to charge Medicaid beds.
Oh, do you know how many beds is in that facility that we can't bill to?
I have it somewhere here.
There are 16 beds in that facility. It's the mental health facility over on Commercial.
Okay. Would they be included in a utility tax though?
Well, if they have services, yes, they'd be charged for utilities.
Okay, and
Yeah,
that's
so-
obviously the company, not the individual people. Okay.
Right, yeah, so they'd get one bill for the organization and not for each unit.
Okay.
That ends up being the difficulty in the calculation of a unit. So,
yeah.
For example, in Walla Walla, they get their one charge, their monthly charge of 12 something. So it just depends on what the council members want to approve and identify. What we can do is bring some options for charging units, and you can see how it can work out in the cost and how it would work. We can bring that to the next meeting and, you know, come up with several options.
Councilmember Peterson here again. This has got to be some sort of a shared cost over the community, though, to say, you know, that 41% of the cost will go to a nursing home because they're 41% of the calls. You know, that's not going to work. You know, this is something where it's going to be like police service. It's going to be like whatever else. It's got to be spread out. It's a unique funding mechanism, of course, but it's that unit analysis. It has to be a shared cost for the entire community, even though you're going to get into these crazy scenarios where there's Medicaid, Medicare. Are you going to charge more to commercial insurance, houses? I mean, this, you could go down rabbit holes here on that. So this is, yeah, whatever that unit is, whether, you know, there's some sort of proportional adjustment for the larger call areas, but you're not going to charge 3 FTEs to 3 facilities, whatever, based on call volume. Anyway, but.
So Mike, any grants available for helping to fund a service like this?
For EMS ambulance, for equipment, yeah, which we do already. For staffing, no. And that is the problem.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Chief Winter and Mr. Carlton. We appreciate it. Yeah, and I think we've got some more marching orders to work with then.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on then. We've got the draft of the fiscal year 2022 to 2027 capital facility plan.
I'm just going to cover a summary sheet. You've all seen it before. I just want to make sure it's everyone's heads for when it goes for approval on the November. So So in the booklet, if you go to page 5, that has the priority projects. The big one is the well number 6, which we just went over, getting that going, the treatment plan, positioning that. So we're able to bid that out and get going on construction. Since our permit mandates, we do phase 1 by the end of 2023. Regional fire training tower, cover that. That's our payment for the next 5 years. 4 bikes. You've seen the demonstration project that Blue Zones and the student volunteers helped mark up. But making that project become a reality very soon. Lions Park and that teed up and ready to go. Majania Road, engineering on that. So we're positioned to construct it. And then council chambers, so we can get it outfitted with appropriate AV system, but then also doing the architecture. So when we get all that stuff in there, we know what we're doing with more office space in the jail cells and stuff, so we don't end up having to rip down stuff. So that is the capital facility plan. Please continue to review it. If you have any questions, let me know.
All right. Do we have any council members with questions or comments? All
I
right.
think it's a very thorough plan and we appreciate all your efforts, Mike.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. We're going to move on to the draft fiscal year 2022 to 27 equipment replacement plan.
Okay, thank you. Same concept with that. I mean, next year is a very large year with that. It's being driven up by several things. Mainly the fact that there is a generator in there. And then the fire department, a very big year for equipment there. So turnouts, the fire marshal and captain's vehicles, those were delayed again, sourcing them because of COVID. And then getting the replacement fire truck with ARPA, and then the ambulance. Police department, it's continuing what we have going on, basically the payments there. In public works, it's parks, stormwater. We have the ecology grant submitted to get a replacement Vector, because right now we're using the old one that we got back from wastewater since we privatized that. Streets, the Stellar, and then the Flusher. And then the water pickup there, but very straightforward. But next year's a big expenditure year in the fire department for equipment. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Any questions or comments? All right, we're going to move on then. Next is the 2022 to 2027 information technology plan.
Okay, thank you. In this plan, the big heavy project is the ERP system for finance. So getting that position, because bias, they're getting bought out and we're going to be stuck with making a choice on that. Either paying who bought them out a bunch of money for the same thing, which really does not sit well with me, or seeing what's out there and getting upgraded stuff, and then potentially yielding some cost savings by bringing in other functions we have with other softwares like Questica into the new ERP solution. So that's the heavy lifting on that. With IT plan, when you go through it, the computer replacement plan, we're pretty much caught up to, I would say, just organic changing out of computers. There isn't a super large expense there, but the ERP is the big one, and then software maintenance on several things. Community development, getting blue beams so we can facilitate marking up plans quicker. And then the ERP system, try to extend it over there so it works out nice. Police department, every other year we yield enough money in forfeited proceeds to get a new camera unit. So we'll do that next year. And then public works, getting an AutoCAD license for Spencer so we can adjust our specs in-house, and then also get a backflow system that is a little more user-friendly to use. But that is the IT plan. If anyone has any questions, please let me know.
Any questions for Mike? Mike, just a quick question. The security cameras,
Yeah.
are we looking for cameras for City Hall, for the outside of City Hall, or?
Yeah, that is one thing I was gonna mention there. I'll just couch it this way. There have been some activities as of late around the City Hall campus at night where how initially we had it for Meadowbrook and Lamperty occurring next year. I think it would be in our best interest to instead put up outdoor security cameras, probably around the municipal campus instead. That would definitely be in our best interest.
Okay, so that's what it's for. Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't have a chance to add to the plan, but yeah, there've been some minor incidences at night. I'll just leave it there, but it would be in our best interest to get cameras. So
Yep, before it gets worse.
yeah,
Right now it's minor vandalism or other things, but it'll pick up if we don't do something.
yeah.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, let's move on. Look at us go. I think everybody's kind of tired. All right, next is the, speaking of, updates for the nuisance code, establishment of.
Oh,
code.
you skipped one.
Oops, what I did. Am I going a little too fast? Oh, yeah. The draft for the fiscal year 2022 state and federal legislative agenda.
Okay, I bring this before you because to get this going, this will need to be adopted at one of the November meetings. None of this is really a surprise, but making sure our funding sources, that they're protected, because TIB, Public Works Trust Fund, any of that goes away, we're in a world of hurt. So protecting that, supporting money for broadband, also dealing with culverts, that's becoming a hot button issue, as well as a transportation package. The state shirked on their responsibility to do a new one last year. It looked like they're going to get there, and then they just left before doing anything. So that needs to be dealt with. Multifamily tax exemption, I've said that for a number of years, but that's why that Evergreen development over by Safeway, that's why it went to Walla Walla and not us, because they can do that in the way legislative law is around that right now. We're precluded from playing in that sandbox. General Government Growth Management Act, it needs to be retooled so we have a better position in those discussions with the county. That's what you see there. And then just against unfunded mandates, defending local control, fairly standard stuff. And then public safety, just a lot of clarification and some stuff around that law that they passed. And then additional funding for the academy. The priorities for the projects is the treatment plant. We're writing grants anywhere and everywhere for that, but very expensive project, 25 million bucks. We can't be expected to pay that ourselves. So Fed, state, anyone with checking account on a higher government level, they need to pony up. Western water system improvements. This delves into some of the stuff that you approved earlier tonight. That deals with that new well NTO we want to build, but we also need another storage tank, because just to put it in perspective, Colfax, that had a third of the population of College Place, has double the amount of water storage we have. I don't know, I just find that to be an interesting statistic. They have 2,800 people and they have about double the water storage we have. So we really need to build another tank out on the west side of town. The camp facility, we turned in a grant. I think we're in a good position to get it. That's key. And then Southeast 12th getting money for that. But that is the legislative agenda. If anyone has questions, comments, concerns, let me know. But that thing needs to move in November so we could start bugging legislators and stuff for money.
Questions or comments? All right, I don't see any. Thank you, Mike. Let's see, then now we're on to the next one of the updates of the city nuisance code, establishment of code enforcement chapter, and Mr. Rizzatello is going to present for Ms. Colwell.
Yeah, so yeah, Ree is off today. Big thing to understand here, there's a lot to this, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to pretend to cover everything, but the main gist of this is keep in mind when we worked together to rewrite the nuisance codes like 4 years ago, we didn't even have a code enforcement officer, so our police officers were just acting as that. So since we have that code enforcement officer, we're in a groove of like how to do this. There's a lot of stuff that I would say no longer works since we have a more mature function. Because that stuff that I wrote at the time, I was trying to cover all the bases, but really we had nothing to work from because there wasn't really a semblance of a program. Now there is, and as Ree's been working the cases through district court, there's just some discrepancies in these various boilerplate codes, or she's trying to clean up so it makes it easier on Ron Nordman, our special enforcement officer, to be working this program. So the revisions you see, that was a joint effort between Ree, Jen, Ron, Troy, and everyone to get something in place that reflects really what needs to reflect the current standards. So that's what you see before you. Please read it. It'll go for action next meeting. If you have any questions, feel free to email Ree, and she could clarify those for you.
And I will confirm that there has been numerous discussions back and forth on trying to get this right. So please let them know if anything is out of what you think is usual, or you just don't understand, because of course they're seeing it from a business side of legal or law enforcement. Any other questions, comments on this discussion item? Okay, let's move on. Oh,
Sorry, this is Councilmember Selby, trying to remember my name, but I'm thinking it might be a good idea to coordinate with the university on the nuisance code so that, you know, the rules don't change dramatically if you step off the sidewalk onto college property or something.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, I get that. In
Okay.
fact, we have a coordination with them this week, so I can share this with them at that juncture.
Cool. Thank you.
yeah, perfect timing for that to happen. Thursday, Mike, is that when it is, Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. Okay, then, anything else?
Councilmember Peterson, Mike, I noticed on our Chromebooks, it's saying that's final software update. So you may have to go back and adjust the IT budget for next year for all our Chromebooks. Just kidding. So I don't know, are we going to get new ones, you think, for council members, or is there, I've noticed we've been getting that the notice on our Chromebooks that it's a final software update or whatever on some of them. So
I'll talk with our IT contractor about that. I haven't been getting a message like that on mine, so I don't know what could be up with that, but I'll talk to Jeremy and I'll get an answer to you on that.
Not a huge thing. I just want to make sure it continues to be secure and whatnot, you know, and whatnot. So anyway, yeah, minor thing. Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
All right, so there are several informational reports in the packet for you to review when you have some time, so please do review those. We do not have an executive session, so is there any other business for good of the order?
I'm surprised that we didn't have anything that we could scrounge up to talk about in an executive session. You got nothing, Mike?
No,
I mean, you guys don't have to be anywhere, do you?
I'm still impressed that Chief Winter is still here.
I know, I was wondering why he stuck around when he could have left.
Well, you wouldn't badmouth me when I was gone.
True.
Next time, Lisa, you can put him at the end since he's in no hurry.
Noted.
All right, I'm done. Good night, everybody. Can we adjourn?
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right.
Second.
All right, if there's no objection, it is adjourned at 9:25 PM.